The town hall was bathed in the last dying light of evening, the old wooden floorboards groaning under every footstep. Wyatt Ramsey stood at the center of it all, his shoulders squared, the ghosts of the past whispering around him like the autumn wind. Clara Hayes sat beside him at the long oak table, hands folded tightly in her lap to still their trembling. Across from them, Travis Blackwell lounged with a predator's smile, flanked by two board members dressed in polished suits, their arrogance soaking the room like a rotten stench. Wyatt's voice cut through the heavy silence. I want it all reinstated. The Daniel Ramsey Fund. The investigation into Drake Memorial. My name cleared. And in return, I walk away. Travis gave a low chuckle, leaning back in his chair. You think you can just stroll back into town after 5 years and call the shots? The world forgot you, Wyatt. You're a ghost. Wyatt's gaze was steady, unflinching. You didn't forget me. The tension crackled like dry kindling. Clara caught the tiny blinking light tucked into the woodwork. The sheriff's hidden recorder was live, capturing every word. One of the board members scoffed. Daniel was a liability. A naive kid who couldn't keep his mouth shut. You can't build an empire worrying about bleeding hearts. Wyatt's jaw clenched so tightly the muscle ticked in his cheek. Travis shrugged, his smile cold and thin. It was unfortunate, but necessary. The words hit like a slap in the face. Clara's fists tightened under the table. Wyatt leaned forward slowly, voice low enough to cut glass. You murdered my brother, and now you'll pay for it. Before the next breath could be drawn, the doors behind them slammed open. The sheriff stormed in, deputies fanning out behind him, weapons drawn. That's enough, the sheriff barked. Travis shot to his feet, rage twisting his face. What the hell is this? You're under arrest, conspiracy, medical fraud, and attempted murder, the sheriff growled, his voice sharp as a blade. You and your whole corrupt board. One of the board members bolted for the side exit. Deputies tackled him to the floor. Another man froze, hands raised, white as a sheet. But Travis moved faster. In one smooth, vicious motion, he yanked a pistol from inside his jacket. He didn't aim for the sheriff. He didn't aim for the deputies. He aimed straight at Clara. Everything slowed. The world shrank to the glint of metal, the widening horror in Clara's eyes, the surge of Wyatt's body as he moved without thinking. He threw himself between Clara and the gun. The shot cracked like lightning. Wyatt grunted, stumbling forward, clutching his side. Blood blossomed through his shirt, dark and vivid. Chaos erupted. The deputies swarmed Travis, dragging him to the ground as he cursed and fought like a wild animal. Clara barely registered the shouting, the scuffle, the metal clatter of handcuffs slamming shut. She only saw Wyatt sinking to the floor, his knees buckling, his breath hitching in shallow gasps. Wyatt, she screamed, rushing to him, catching his body before he hit the ground fully. His face was pale, slick with sweat, his lips trembling as he tried, and failed, to smile. Still, hate getting shot, he rasped. Shut up. Save your strength, Clara whispered fiercely, pressing her hands against the bleeding wound. Hot blood seeped through her fingers, but she pressed harder, desperate, refusing to let him go. The sheriff dropped to his knees beside them, his face grim. Paramedics are 2 minutes out. Hold on, son. Wyatt's hand, trembling and blood-slick, found Clara's wrist. His fingers curled weakly around her. Did we get them? He croaked. Clara blinked back the burning in her eyes. She nodded, voice thick with tears. We got them, Wyatt. All of them. A faint, broken smile ghosted across his face. Good, he whispered. Daniel can rest now. Then his eyes fluttered closed, and his head fell back against Clara's chest. No, Wyatt, stay with me, Clara begged, her heart tearing apart. She pressed her forehead to his, rocking him slightly as sirens wailed in the distance, slicing through the night. The storm was over. The enemy defeated. The truth finally set free. But Wyatt was slipping away right there in her arms, and Clara realized with terrifying clarity that winning the war meant nothing if she lost him. She held him tighter, whispered prayers against his temple, and refused to let go. Not this time. Not ever again. The ICU was a cold, humming world of machines and whispered prayers. Wyatt Ramsey lay pale and motionless beneath a web of tubes, the monitor beside him ticking off each fragile heartbeat. The bullet had torn deep into his side, dangerously close to the lung, but the doctors had fought, and somehow Wyatt had fought harder. Clara Hayes had not left his bedside. She sat stiffly in the uncomfortable hospital chair, hands clenched together so tightly her knuckles were bloodless. Shadows pooled under her eyes. She hadn't eaten, hadn't slept, didn't even notice the sunrise bleeding slowly across the sky outside the window. The town of Red Hollow was alive with news, the arrests, the evidence, the hospital scandal finally exposed. But none of that mattered to Clara. Only the man lying broken before her mattered. "You stubborn fool," she whispered, reaching out to brush a strand of hair from Wyatt's forehead. "You didn't survive all this just to leave now." The door creaked open. Dr. Morrison stepped inside, his face worn but kind. "He's stable," Morrison said quietly. "The worst is over. Now, it's up to him." Clara nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. She waited until the door clicked closed before she leaned forward, resting her forehead gently against Wyatt's hand. "You made them listen," she whispered. "You made them remember Daniel. You made them see you again. But you have to come back, Wyatt. Not for them. For you. For us." For a long time, there was only the soft beep of the monitor. Then the slightest pressure. His fingers twitched against hers. Clara jerked back, blinking. Wyatt's eyelids fluttered, a faint line forming between his brows. "Wyatt," she gasped, squeezing his hand. His eyes opened, unfocused at first, then slowly found her. A tiny, tired smile ghosted across his lips. "Hey," he rasped, voice no louder than a breath. Clara laughed through her tears, relief flooding her chest so sharply it hurt. "Hey yourself," she said, brushing his hand against her cheek. He tried to speak, but she hushed him quickly. "Don't push it. Just rest. You're safe now." Wyatt's eyes, still clouded with pain and medication, softened when they landed on her. "You stayed," he whispered. "Of course I stayed," Clara choked out. "You idiot." He smiled, a real one this time, and let his heavy eyes drift closed again, surrendering to healing sleep. But not alone. Not anymore. Weeks passed. The day Wyatt Ramsey finally walked out of Carter Memorial Healing Center, the town of Red Hollow stood waiting. Not for a parade, not for spectacle, but because for once, they knew they owed him more than whispers and rumors. The Daniel Ramsey Healing Wing opened with quiet reverence. A brass plaque, simple but beautiful, was placed at the entrance. "In memory of Daniel Ramsey. May truth always prevail." Wyatt stood before it, cane in hand for support, Clara at his side. Reporters clamored in the distance, but the moment wasn't for them. It was for the boy he had failed once, and for the future he had decided to fight for. "You did it," Clara whispered, her hand brushing lightly against his. "No," Wyatt murmured. "We did." He turned to her, the crowd blurring into nothing. Only her. Only the woman who had seen him at his lowest and refused to look away. "I spent so long chasing ghosts," Wyatt said quietly. "I forgot what living felt like." Clara smiled up at him, tears glistening but unfallen. "Then let's live, Wyatt. Let's finally live." He nodded once, fiercely. A man who had nearly lost everything and realized that what mattered most wasn't revenge or redemption, but the chance to love, to heal, to be whole. They left the ceremony hand in hand, ignoring the flashing cameras and shouted questions. Red Hollow didn't need more heroes. It needed healing, and Wyatt Ramsey was ready to be part of it. The sun was sinking low when Wyatt led Clara up the ridge behind his old ranch. 2 horses waited at the crest, saddled and ready. One a sturdy bay mare, the same one that had once carried him through mist and danger. The other, a spirited dapple gray he had found and gentled during his long years in hiding. Clara laughed when she saw the second horse. "You planned this," she accused, eyes sparkling. "I hoped," Wyatt said simply. He helped her into the saddle, ignoring the lingering ache in his side, and together they rode into the open fields where wildflowers danced in the wind and the sky stretched endless above them. The breeze tugged at Clara's hair. Wyatt rode beside her, matching her pace, the creak of leather and the rhythm of hoofbeats grounding them in the now. Not the past, not the pain, just now. At the top of the ridge, they paused. Below them, Red Hollow sprawled peaceful and golden in the setting sun. The new sign of Carter Memorial gleamed in the distance, a symbol not of tragedy, but of triumph. Wyatt turned toward Clara. "I chased justice for years," he said, voice rough with emotion. "But I didn't realize until I found you that justice was never the end. It was just the beginning." Clara leaned over, resting her forehead lightly against his. "No more running," she whispered. "Never again," Wyatt promised. And as the sun sank below the horizon, painting the world in hues of gold and fire, Wyatt Ramsey and Clara Hayes rode down the hill, not as fugitives, not as survivors, but as 2 souls finally, fiercely, wholly free. Together, at last.